Number 10. The Freedomites. After the Tsarist persecution in Russia, a group of pacifist, anti-materialist Christians, referred to as spirit warriors, fled the country and came to Canada in the 20th century. While many were happy to just live freely off the land, a section of the group grew unhappy at the Canadians for asking them to attend school and enlist in the military. This group called themselves the Sons of Freedom, or Freedomites, and despite their name, wanted to impose their way of belief on others. They were most famous for their dislike of materialism and would often show this by protesting in the complete nude. Many photos of the group of farmers marching in the nude became pretty famous and put the religion on the map. They didn't simply protest in the nude though. They took to another more violent outlet, arson, burning down many buildings including homes, schools, courtrooms, and bridges. This led to the persecution of the entire group, including the peaceful ones who hadn't been involved, and they were pretty much wiped out of the country.
In our ninth spot, we have the dollar bill. Now, this is a pretty wholesome one for you all. When a woman named Esther was young, she had written her name on a couple of dollar bills after a bad breakup. She then told herself that she was going to marry the man that brought the bill back to her. Well, years later, she was dating a man named Paul Gratchen. The day he asked Esther to be his girlfriend, they were at a sandwich shop. As he was paying for the meal, he got handed a dollar bill with the name Esther written on it. The bill she wrote years prior. And in the end, they ended up getting married. Now, how wholesome is that? The universe literally gave her what she had manifested. Coming in at number 8, we have the girls with the red balloon. In 2001, a 10-year-old girl named Laura Buxton decided to release a red balloon from her front yard with a message on it. The balloon said, "Please return to Laura Buxton," and it had her address written on it. Well, this balloon traveled 140 miles and ended up landing on the yard of another 10-year-old girl's house. This girl's name was also Laura Buxton. Like, what are the odds? The two Laura Buxtons ended up meeting and they discovered that they had tons of similarities, not just their age and name. For example, they both had a guinea pig, a gray rabbit, and a 3-year-old chocolate lab. They both also looked alike and dressed alike. I'm telling you, this is just way too freaky. Like, what are the odds? I'm gonna be saying that a lot in this video. What are the odds? Moving on to number 7, we have Mark Twain and Halley's Comet. Every 76 years, Halley's Comet is visible to the naked eye as it soars past Earth. Well, American writer Mark Twain was born on one of Halley's Comets passing in 1835. The next year that the comet was said to pass was in 1910, and Mark Twain predicted that he was going to die that year. He said that he came into the world with the comet and that he was going to leave the world with the comet as well. And Mark Twain was right. Mark Twain passed one day after the comet's closest approach in 1910. So not only did Mark Twain predict his own death, but his birth and death both seamlessly lined up with Halley's Comet. How freaky. In our 6th spot, we have Violet Jessup. Violet Jessup has been named the luckiest woman as well as the unluckiest woman. She also has been given the name Miss Unsinkable, and I'll explain how she got those nicknames in just a second. So Violet was a stewardess and nurse who was on board 3 big sister ships when disaster struck each of them. It started with the HMS Olympic. She was on board the ship when it collided with the HMS Hawk. Then she was on the HMHS Britannic when it struck a mine at sea. And lastly, she was on board the Titanic, and she managed to escape all 3 of these disasters. At this point, she probably was cursed, and after the first accident, she shouldn't have gotten back on any ships ever again. So that's why she's been given the name the luckiest, unluckiest woman to live. She's been lucky to survive all the accidents, but unlucky that they kept happening to her. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Daniel du Toit. The irony behind this next story is mind-blowing. So Daniel du Toit was a South African astronomer. Over his life, he discovered and co-discovered several comets. He also spent his days giving lectures. On September 28th, 1981, he gave a lecture on how death can strike anyone at any time. As soon as the lecture was done, he popped a mint into his mouth. The mint then slid to the back of his throat, he choked on it, and died right then and there. So yeah, I'd say his lecture was pretty spot on. In our fourth spot today, we have Harry Zigland. Now, this story is kind of controversial. Some say it's an old wives' tale. Others say that it actually did happen. Now, if it did happen, then this is the definition of karma. So back in the day, there was a man named Harry Zigland who broke a woman's heart. She was so heartbroken that she took her own life. Her brother was so devastated and angry at Harry that he vowed to get revenge on him. So he went out to find Harry with his gun and shot at him. Harry fell to the floor, and the brother, thinking that he had succeeded in killing him, grabbed his gun and took his own life. But Harry survived. The bullet didn't strike him. Instead, it hit and got lodged into a nearby tree. 3 years later, Henry was using dynamite to remove the tree. When he blew it up, the explosion sent the bullet out of the tree, and it hit and instantly killed him. It took karma 3 years, but it finally caught up to him. Coming in at number 3, we have the Hoover Dam. Over the course of the construction of the Hoover Dam, there were 96 deaths. The first death was of a man named J.G. or George Turney. It occurred on December 20th, 1922. He sadly lost his life after drowning in the dam. 14 years later, on the exact anniversary of this guy's death, his son, Patrick Turney, lost his life. He fell from an electrical tower and died. This was also the final death reported during the construction of the dam, meaning the first man to die and the last man were father and son, and it happened on the exact same day. Coming in at number 2, we have Jack Frost and Other Stories. Some things are just meant to be, and you'll believe this once you hear this next story. Children's book author Anne Parrish was with her husband in Paris when they stopped by an antique bookshop from the 1920s. While in there, she found a copy of Jack Frost and Other Stories. She told her husband that that was her favorite book as a child. Well, when he opened the book, it had her name written inside of it. It read Anne Parrish, 209N Weber Street, Colorado Springs. So not only did it have Anne's name in the book, but it had the place she grew up in, Colorado Springs. Seems like Anne was meant to find that book. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the 2 presidents. It turns out that Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy share a lot of eerie coincidences. Besides the fact that they both were American presidents, they both were killed by a gunshot wound to the back of the head. They both passed away on a Friday. They both died before a celebration. Kennedy was assassinated on the eve of Thanksgiving. Lincoln died right before Easter. And each were accompanied by their wife and another couple when they were killed. But that's not all. They both had best friends named Billy Graham. Both Billies had 4 children, and they both had secretaries named after the other president. Kennedy's secretary was Miss Lincoln. Lincoln's secretary was John. But wait, there's even more. Both of their successors were vice presidents called Johnson. The freakiest coincidence, Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theater. Kennedy was shot in a Lincoln made by Ford.
Starting off this list, in our number 10 spot, we have Bale. Bale is ranked as the first of the Ars Goetia, which I obviously had to look up because I had no idea what that was. If you're like me and aren't exactly up to date on your demonology, as explained by the demonicparadisefandom.com, quote, the Ars Goetia, also known as the 72 Pillars, is a group comprised of 72 demons with exemplary strength and their own legions. They are listed in the grimoire Lesser Key of Solomon. Okay, cool. That was easy to understand. So, Bale is the first on that, and he is the principal king of hell. It is said that he governs somewhere from 66 to 250 legions of demons and spirits, so he's clearly a workaholic. In grimoire tradition, it is said that Bale appears in the form of a man, a cat, a toad, or different combinations of those with the appearance of a king or a soldier, but with the heads of these creatures, and on a set of spider legs. So, I'm just saying, the guy's not easy to miss. I feel like that's pretty clear exactly who that is. Number 9. Angel's Landing. Daniel Perez led the Angel's Landing cult for 15 years. They traveled from state to state and had a large commune on Daniel's property near Wichita. Things overall didn't seem too bad for people looking in, but suspicions were raised when there were a number of so-called accidental deaths, and Daniel always seemed to be coming into large amounts of money. As it turns out, Daniel Perez actually had been responsible for the deaths that had taken in place in the group, and he had been using it as a ploy to collect their life insurance money, collecting millions of dollars over the years. However, he wouldn't be able to get away with it forever when one young member of the group returned to the police to tell her that she had actually lied about one of the deaths being accidental. After he was found responsible and arrested, he was finally put on trial in 2015, being charged with a total of 28 different crimes. Number 8. The Ant Hill Kids. The Ant Hill Kids were in existence for 8 years, and at their peak had a following of only 12 adults and 26 children. Rock Therio created the group when he believed that the world was going to end in 1979, and as with most leaders, gained his followers through his charisma and looks. He moved them to a place in Quebec where they started building a town, working together like a group of ants and coining their name. Over time, the leader became violent due to his excessive drinking, and would perform drunken surgeries on the cult members in attempts to prove that he could heal them, but always doing much more harm than good. One of his many wives managed to escape the horrible conditions and went to the police about what had happened, Rock being arrested 6 weeks later. His arrest ended the group and he went away for life in prison, dying in 2011 at the hands of a fellow inmate. Number 7. Heaven's Gate. From 1974 to 1997, around 200 men and women unsatisfied with their lives came together and joined the Heaven's Gate cult. The group was formed by Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles after they had met and bonded in a psychiatric institution. They believed that they were both aliens camouflaged in human bodies and had been sent to teach people about the afterlife in outer space that was referred to as the next level. He convinced his followers to move away from their families to get ready to be taken to the next level, but it didn't end up happening and most of their followers left. But we're living in the future, so the two took to the internet to gain new followers, the website still being available to view online to this day. This ended up culminating in 1997 with the group leaving their containers and graduating from their current lives, being found with buzzed haircuts, $5.75 in their pockets, and Nike decades. Number 6. Synon. In 1958, Synon was opened in Santa Monica, and it would be active there for over 30 years, having 1,300 members at its peak. This group mainly recruited addicts and took many different forms over its lifespan: a rehabilitation program, a utopian society, and a church. It was created by Charles Dedrich, and its staples were its focus on quitting cold turkey, tough love, and something called the game, where one member of the group opens up and the rest verbally attack them. Hundreds of people eventually moved in and paid to live there, Synon at one point having around $33 million in assets. But Charles' greed and hunger for power only continued to grow, and the conditions in the place worsened over time, facing accusations of things like abduction and brainwashing. The lawsuit placed and won made Charles so angry that he got his followers to put a venomous snake in the man's mailbox, the man barely surviving. He was eventually arrested, and Synon was shut down for the allegations and for tax fraud. Number 5. The People's Temple. This one is the one that most of us are probably all familiar with, especially if you chose to click on this video. Reverend Jim Jones created what he called the People's Temple of the Disciples of Christ, but you probably know it as Jonestown, the place that was supposed to be utopia. Many people liked him, and he had thousands of followers, and even the support of politicians. What they didn't know was that Jones had a penchant for substance abuse and was very violent towards his followers. Jonestown, the supposed utopia, quickly became a nightmare for the people living there, being held under strict rules and regimens. On November 18th, a California congressman came to visit, and people wanted to escape with him back to the United States. Jones became incredibly angry at this notion and ordered everyone into the pavilion, ordering them to drink a mixed drink that would kill them. Number 4. Demus Kanjang. Demus Kanjang was able to form a cult fairly easily. The leaders of these types of groups will usually try to convince you of something, whether it be that they are an alien or have magical healing powers. Demus did this by convincing people that he could pull money out of thin air, and the way that he did it is incredibly simple. You can see videos of him demonstrating this online. He simply puts his hands behind his back, and then brings them forward with money in them, obviously having just kept the money behind his back. But it was somehow still enough to convince people that he had magic powers. Sometimes sometimes pulling not just money from the air, but also meatballs and plastic bags of soup. He somehow managed to amass thousands of followers and almost $38 million in donations, even coming from high-ranking members of the military and people in government. When two of his followers realized that he was eventually going to run out of money to pull from behind his back, they confronted him, and he responded by having them both killed. He was arrested and convicted in 2016 and still has another 12 years to serve. Number 3. Scientology. The so-called Church of Scientology was developed by L. Ron Hubbard and surrounds the idea that humans have trauma preventing them from experiencing life properly, and that they must work towards a spiritual state called clear. Their teaching surrounds a few different truths, some of them being listed as: man is an immortal spiritual being. His experience extends well beyond a single lifetime. His capabilities are unlimited, even if not presently realized. They also believe in an alien called Xenu who brought all his buddies to Earth 75 million years ago and blew them up next to a volcano, which, you know, makes sense. You've probably heard about Scientology because of just how many celebrities are connected to it. Its members include people like Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and Kirstie Alley. Scientology is incredibly controversial, mostly due to the reports of them brainwashing their members and the evidence that the cult had been created for the express purpose of making money. Number 2. The True Russian Orthodox Church. The True Russian Orthodox Church is one of many so-called doomsday cults, groups that center their beliefs and practices around the idea of the world ending, and usually very soon. Just south of Moscow in November of 2007, a trained engineer who had declared himself a prophet blessed his group members before sending them into a cave to wait for the world to end. And while they were in there, he was getting a psychiatric evaluation. The 35 group members stayed inside the cave and threatened to detonate gas canisters if anyone tried to remove them. They stayed in the cave for months, just sitting around and waiting for the world to end in the small area. Two of the group members eventually passed away within the cave, and as they could not leave lest they face the apocalypse, they simply stayed in the room with the bodies. However, in April it became too much, and the living group members were convinced to come out of the cave and return to society, finding that the world hadn't ended after all. The leader was taken to the hospital after being distraught over his prediction not coming true, and the cult was ended. Number 1. The FLDS. If you've been browsing through Netflix recently, then you've probably seen the limited series called Keep Sweet, Pray and Obey. The series documents the history of the group called the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints, or FLDS for short. It chronicles the series of people who have managed to escape from the group, which broke off from Mormonism in the 1930s after polygamy was outlawed. It was led by Rulon Jeffs, but things apparently didn't get too bad until his son, Warren Jeffs, took over, dissipating the council and taking complete control over the group. Many terrible things happened throughout their history, and if you want the full details, feel free to watch the series. I really do recommend it. It included things like psychological blackmail, separating children from their families to be sent to do labor on a supposed utopia in Texas, and more. Things came to a head in a 2008 raid of the compound and Jeffs went to prison, but the group is still active today, with Jeffs still giving teachings from behind bars.
Starting off this countdown, we have Jean-Marie Dewberry. On February 13th, 1746, a French man named Jean-Marie was executed for the murder of his father. Hundreds of years later, on the exact same day, a man named Jean-Marie Dewberry was also sentenced to death. He had also taken the life of his father. So what are the odds that two unrelated people with the same name both killed their fathers and then got executed on the same day? Like, that is just way too freaky.
In our number 9 spot today, we have Amman. Amman is the Great Marquis of Hell, and he is the 7th of the demons of the Ars Goetia, which thankfully we now know all about. It is said that he is in charge of governing 40 different legions of demons, but his favorite thing to do with humans is making them fall in love with each other. He is also known to settle debates, and you might be sitting there thinking that this guy actually sounds pretty cool and nice, but despite these cool, nice things he enjoys, he is anything but nice. Just like he can make people fall in love, he can do the exact opposite as well. He can cause people to turn against each other and can even will someone to harm the innocent, which is terrifying. To make that thought slightly less horrifying, it is said he doesn't usually do this for no reason, and usually only does this when attacked or if someone is standing in his way of completing a mission. Still not good, but I suppose that's better than just random acts of violence. It is said that Ammon appears as a wolf with a snake's tail and that he possesses the ability to breathe fire. Or he will appear as a man with dog teeth who is inside of a raven. I don't know, ask him about that one, not me. In our number 8 spot today we have Asmodius. Asmodius is the king of demons and earthly spirits and is often referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell. He also represents one of the 7 deadly sins, lust. Before becoming a demon in his former life, he was an angel who was known as Asmodel, the angel of April and patience who rules the zodiac sign Taurus. But of course we are here to talk about his demon form, which is said to appear as either a ruthless, brutal monster or as a kind of mischievous demon that is playful and quick thinking. Honestly, I'm not sure which form would be worse to encounter. The monster would be scary, but a little annoying demon would be so frustrating. For the most terrifying exit I've ever heard of, it is said that Asmodius will cut himself into pieces and immediately after disappear. In our number 7 spot today we have Leviathan. Leviathan isn't fully a demon, but he is even a step above as he is a primordial beast of darkness and chaos, and he is one of the 7 princes of hell, as well as its gatekeeper. He also represents one of the deadly sins, envy. The entrance to hell is actually said to be Leviathan's mouth, known as the Hellmouth. The exact origins of Leviathan aren't exactly clear, but in the end it is agreed that he fell from God's grace and became the beast of the chaotic oceans that cannot be tamed by man or beast. So Leviathan is the beast of the oceans, Behemoth is the beast of the earth, and Ziz is the beast of the air. After the war in heaven, these 3 beasts all turned on each other and then threw all of what they govern and those who live in it into absolute madness. This forced God to step in and separate these 3 beasts so that they didn't completely destroy the earth. It is said that if anyone tries to escape the inferno of hell, Leviathan will devour them and suck them inside of his stomach. Here they will remain forever to be burned in the flames of the body. In our number 6 spot today we have Mammon. Mammon is another one of those fallen angels turned demon and is often associated with the sin of greed. Because of this, Mammon is the noble demon lord of cupidity, richness, abundance, prosperity, wealth, and injustice. It is said that even during his time in heaven, he spent more time looking at the golden roads rather than God himself because he was already obsessed with gold and riches. Actually, it is reported that his obsession with the gold was so serious that his fall from heaven wasn't really because he was passionate about Lucifer's rebellion, he was just too focused on wealth, and this was enough for him to be cast out by Archangel Gabriel. It is said that Mammon is the creator of alchemy, and he is the one who bestowed the knowledge to humans of what alchemical compounds are needed to make gold. It is said that because he gave this top secret information out, it led to the creation of these sort of humanoid creatures that possess great power and strength, which indirectly makes him the creator of these creatures. In our number 5 spot today we have Azazel. Azazel is one of the chief governors of the Grigori, which is a group of fallen angels who married female mortals, which then produced the Nephilim, which were these scary giant creatures that ate mortals. In the beginning, Azazel started as an eater of sins, but the more sins he consumed, the hungrier he became, and this led to him not being satiated by the sins he was receiving. The reason he was cast from heaven is because he taught men how to make swords, knives, shields, and breastplates, which then led to humans being corrupted and thinking that they were invisible. It is said that the humans went so far that they were planning to raid heaven, and this is when God told Raphael to bind Azazel's hands and feet, open up a hole in the desert, and toss him in, casting him into darkness. This worked, and for a long time Azazel remained in prison. It was so bad that the jagged rocks near him tore his physical body away, and this left him as a mass of darkness covered in mouths and eyes. Later freed by Lucifer, he went on to join the demons in hell. In our number 4 spot today we have Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former seraph who turned into a high-ranking demon. He is one of the princes of hell and also oversees the Order of the Fly. He, Satan, and Lucifer form the triarchy of hell, which makes him one of the supreme monarchs of the underworld. As a seraphim, he was under the Archangel Gabriel, but he was one of the very first angels to fall. He is often confused with Satan, and while the 2 names can technically be interchanged, they are 2 separate entities entities, and in some writings, they even disagree at times. Beelzebub is associated with pride and gluttony, and he has also been held responsible for demonic possessions throughout the years. Unfortunately, flies are a very important thing for him, as it is said that he can take the form of them. Now, his main job is to rule over the fallen angels as well as all of the demons that are originally from hell. In our number 3 spot today, we have Paimon. Paimon is the 9th pillar of the Ars Goetia, and he is a king of hell that is most obedient to Lucifer. He is normally depicted as a strong man with a face that has softer features. He wears a crown, and he is seen riding a dromedary, which is a type of one-humped camel, usually trained for riding or races. Before him, there is often a whole group of demons and ghouls who are in the shape of mortal men, playing instruments like trumpets and cymbals, which is of course meant to give Paimon a grand entrance to wherever he is on the way to. He is manipulative, malicious, and honestly pretty hostile. He inflicts psychological, physical, and spiritual torment, and will even go as far as to recreate traumatic events or just give terrifying visions and nightmares. His voice is so loud and roaring that whoever invokes him has to command him to alter his speech, or else he'll continue speaking at an ear-splitting volume, and he won't be able to be heard or understood. If he's not causing you torment, it is said that he can tell you all of the mysteries of the earth though. I'm still not convinced it's worth the risk, however. In our number 2 spot today, we have Belial. Belial is the 68th spirit in the Goetia, and he is one of the crowned princes of hell, but he is also known as Hell's brightest fire, Evil's match, and the king of evil, so I think it's safe to say that he's pretty terrifying. He is mighty and powerful, and this is likely due to the fact that he was created right after Lucifer, which is of course part of the reason why Belial belongs to his order. Belial was once an angel, but after his fall from grace he became a demon of lies and guilt, and he possesses the ability to induce any type of sin, but his favorite is the sin of lust. Belial is so evil that it's said he started a civil war in hell. While still an angel just before his fall, in the War of Heaven, Belial slayed numerous angels, and as a demon, just in general, he would slay huge demonic armies that attempted to make any moves against him or any of the other 7 great kings. In our number 1 spot today, we have Belfagore. Belfagore is a fallen angel, and after his fall from heaven, he has now become the demon lord presiding over the sin of sloth. It is said that as Belfagore served as a lieutenant from hell, he was sent to Earth on a mission by Satan. While he was on Earth, he grew quite fond of Paris, France, and it is said that because of this affinity, he now lurks deep within the catacombs under the city. Belfagore can be invoked by mortals who are wishing to find fame and wealth, usually through as little effort as possible. But these wishes are of course doomed to fail because of the demon's true mission to lure the dreamers into sloth. Through the failure of whatever was provided to the dreamer by Belfagore, he then draws them into procrastination and idle dreaming rather than active production, which then condemns them to a life of failure. Belfagore is also recognized as one of the 7 great kings who rule over hell.